Now we start um, two sessions, one after the other, with invited speakers, and I would like to give the space, the first one, the first invited speaker, who is Susana Deustua. We know her, and the chair, who is Amelia Ortiz, I think. Hello, are you there?
Yes, hello, I'm here.
Hello, Amelia. Thank you very much. Amelia is also replacing someone else. So thank you to be here from one moment to the other, from 1 second to the other. Thank you very much. And
Okay,
well, please, your time.
yeah. Well, thank you very much, Beatriz, for giving me 10 minutes notice about this. And it is a great pleasure to introduce our next invited speaker, Susana Deustua. She is an astronomer at the Space Telescope Science Institute. She studies dark energy using supernovae, and she is also involved in the calibration of the future Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope. She, as a member of the Supernova Cosmology Project, received the 2015 Breakthrough Prize in Fundamental Physics and the 2007 Gruber Cosmology Prize. She has been involved in science education, and prior to joining the STSCI, she was Director of Education of the American Astronomical Society. She is the current president of the International Astronomical Union Division C on Education, Outreach, and Heritage, and she has been involved in the development of the IAU Strategic Plan for Education that she is going to present to us now. Susana, are you there?
I am here.
Great.
And let me do the whole share the screen.
Yep.
And I think I'm sharing, and I'm told it takes a little while for everything to show.
Even Susana is surprising because probably she waiting for me.
Could be. So can you see the first page?
Yeah, it's fine now, yes.
Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Division C, whose title is Education, Outreach, and Heritage, which means that this division covers everything that isn't science, basically. And heritage includes things like history of astronomy, as well as the preservation of observatories and the tangible and intangible aspects, including, for example, cultural astronomy, as well as the history of astronomy. And first of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for giving me a few minutes to talk to you all about the division. I know that you've heard already about the IAU itself, and you've also heard from Marcus Posel about the new Office of Astronomy Education. And so it is my great pleasure to be able to talk to you a little bit about the Division C. So the IAU Strategic Plan 2020-2030, as you have heard, has 5 goals. And I believe John Hernshaw talked about these in his presentation. And I will just repeat them: to lead the global coordination of professional astronomy, to promote the inclusive advancement of astronomy, to promote astronomy as a tool for development, to promote the public engagement in astronomy, and to stimulate using astronomy for education. These goals and the full description of these that you can read in the strategic plan form the foundation for what the division has been pivoting towards since 2018 to prepare for this decade. So for the division, we would like to be able to support teachers worldwide who use astronomy to teach science, but also to teach humanities and the arts. And we have heard talks in the last couple of days, and I'm sure we'll hear more, as well as discussions on how to do this. We also want to promote astronomy education research. So in some respects, you could consider this to be the scholarly aspect of education, to find the evidence for what works, what doesn't work, how can we do better, and also to engage learners or lifelong learners. In other words, to bring people in to be learning continuously from, I'd almost want to say from when they are toddlers to the end, basically, cradle to grave. And also to engage everyone with a collective history and heritage that has been developed over time, centuries, so that to understand our universe. It's taking a long time on my screen to change. So before going a little deeper, I'd like to give you a little bit of understanding of how the division works. So we have the division is this big group. It has several thousand members. It's a medium-sized division within the IAU. There's a president and a vice president and a steering committee that serves to advise both the president and the vice president. Currently, I'm the president. The vice president is Richard de Grijs, who will be assuming the presidency in 2021 in August. Beneath the division, there are commissions. And this is where a lot of the work gets done. Like the commission's structure is also president, vice president, and an organizing committee. And then working groups form part of the commissions, and each working group has a chair. It could have one or more co-chairs and then members who do the work. And it's the working group that is really the basis of the activities that happen in the division. So just as to recap, the strategic plan was released late in 2018. And as a consequence, the division made the decision to restructure the working groups in support of the strategic plan. And we did this through an open proposal process. So everybody was invited to submit their ideas for the working groups, both for new working groups and for the existing working groups. And the steering committee reviewed all the proposals. And part of the idea also is that we knew there was going to be an Office of Astronomy for Education in 2018, but it hadn't yet been established. So we were also trying to figure out how to position ourselves so that we could support the new Office of Astronomy for Education. And one of the I don't know if it's an activity, but something that happened that was I thought was very exciting is that within the division, we'd had a working group on astronomy for diversity and inclusion. And what happened during this restructuring is that that working group was actually elevated into the executive committee's suite of working groups. So I think this is well, Amelia Ortiz is the chair of that working group, but this was actually a really good thing because that means that some of that, an activity or an emphasis that had started within the division was elevated because it really spans all of the IAU, not just the division. So that was actually very exciting. So a little bit more about the structure of the division. So we have these 4 commissions, one on astronomy, education, and development, one on communicating astronomy with the public, another commission that deals with the history of astronomy, and a 4th commission on world heritage and astronomy. And C4 is a little bit different in that it also is the commission that interacts with, for example, UNESCO. And then there is an interdivision commission on protecting existing and potential observatory sites, which is very active, and that is joint with Division B. So what I've listed here are the working groups that are solely part of a commission. So you can see astronomy education, research and methods, astronomy competition for secondary school students, astronomy education resources, and the network for astronomy school education. Under astronomy education and development, with communicating astronomy with the public, there is a working group on the CAP conferences, that's communicating astronomy to the public. And under C4, there are two working groups addressing astronomical heritage and danger, generally having to do with tangible sites that are in danger of being damaged or lost. And then another working group, Windows to the Universe, classical and modern observatories. All of these are these working groups are, many of the representatives are actually here at the symposium. And then I also want to talk a little bit about intercommission and interdivision working groups. So you might have noticed that under Commission C3, it does not have its own individual working groups, but that's because it shares jointly two working groups, archaeoastronomy and astronomy and culture, and ethnoastronomy and intangible astronomical heritage, with Commission C1, which is the education, and with Commission C4. So C1, C3, and C4 together have these two very important working groups. And we'll be hearing a little bit more, I believe, on Friday about some of the topics that are related to that. We also have intercommission working groups that come from other divisions. So one example is the working group on education and training in astrobiology. Astrobiology is a field that's probably started a few decades ago. So it's one of the younger disciplines within astrophysics. And as we know, it is a growing area, a lot of interest. And so it's almost natural for there to be several divisions and commissions that got together to form one working group. There's another working group on achieving sustainable development within a quality lighting framework, and that is in some respects the protection of our skies, whether they are radio quiet skies or light quiet skies. And then there's a working group jointly with Division B and with Commission C within the division on historical radio astronomy. We also have division working groups. In other words, these are just working groups that are not part of a commission but belong to the division. And one is on star names. And then there is an interdivision working group on solar eclipses, which is really the topic of next week, right? When we have the total solar eclipse on the 14th. So this is to me, this is an example that highlights that Division C is a supporting division within the IAU and supports all the science that is done in galaxies and so forth. One of our goals is to keep the division dynamic, active, and in order to do this, the involvement of individual members is very important, as is also the involvement of associated members. An associated member is an individual who is participating in the work of the division, but is not yet an official member of the IAU. And associated members within Division C are usually people who have particular areas of expertise that are not covered by the standard astronomer who joins the division. And our hope is that eventually they also become full members of the IAU through their participating organizations. We'd like to encourage all members of the IAU to actively participate in the working groups, and we are especially interested in ensuring the participation of junior and early career individuals. and part of this is that in the old days, a lot of people who joined Division C were people approaching retirement. And what we know now is that education, outreach, and heritage is important at all stages. And I just pointed out that the membership is via the national coordinating committees in one's country of residence. Now, within the IAU, at the end of each triennium, in other words, at the end of every 3 years, all working groups are dissolved. And as I pointed out earlier, in 2018, 2019, our division went through the process of renewal to respond to the strategic plan. And out of that process, we had some working groups cease to exist, some new working groups were formed, and some of the existing working groups were renewed and developed or modified their tasks. In 2021, coming up next year, there will be a call for working groups for the next triennium, following a similar process. And then the other aspect of IAU business is that every 6 years, commissions are also up for renewal or dissolution. And I'm happy to report that all 4 commissions within Division C will continue for the next 6 years. That process already happened. And I must say I am looking forward to looking at what the next set of proposals for work done under the division will look like. One of the other aspects of the fun parts of being a member of the Division C is that there is a PhD prize that is awarded annually. Each division has a PhD prize. Nominations and self-nominations are welcome. And for the Division C, the thesis topic of the dissertation has to be in the remit of the division. In other words, it has to be related to the mission. So this would include thesis topics in astronomy education research, in astronomy education practice, in outreach, both in terms of research and practice, in the history of astronomy, in cultural astronomy, which of course includes ethnoastronomy and archaeoastronomy, as well as topics of diversity, equity, and inclusion in astronomy. And I have the URL for more information on this. And I just wanted to remind people that the nominations are due on the 15th of December. If you haven't already done so, you have 5 days or 6 days to submit your nomination. And I just want to point out that the last topic, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is new, and it is in part responding to the springboard for action on diversity, equity, and inclusion that Edwina mentioned in her opening remarks yesterday. So in addition, the division supports symposia and conferences. So one example is this one, Education and Heritage in the Era of Big Data in Astronomy. The division was also supported IAU Symposium 358 that was held in Mitaka in Japan last November on astronomy for equity, diversity, and inclusion, a roadmap to action within the framework of the IAU centennial anniversary. And it is out of that symposium that the springboard had its origins. Also, in, I believe it was 2018, there was an international symposium on education in astronomy and astrobiology in the Netherlands, which was a joint symposium between the IAU and with Division C and the European Astrobiology Campus. In addition, the division supports and encourages ancillary activities at the IAU science conferences. So for example, holding a school, holding a workshop, a public outreach, whether it's for children or adults and so forth. In addition, at the General Assemblies that are held every 3 years, the division sponsors 2 division days in order to present the work of the division to the participants. And we now know that the next General Assembly will be in 2022, still in Busan, Korea, and let us all hope that that will be in person. So a little bit of history now. So Division C and its ancestors effectively have led to the, well, I don't know that they led to the creation, but they supported the development of the Office of Astronomy for Development, which has been in existence since 2011, and Division C supports those activities. It also supports the Office for Astronomy and Outreach through Commission C2. And the Office for Young Astronomers was formed in 2015, and again, Division C supports that. And the Office of Young Astronomers comes out of the former Commission, I think 46, which is one of the ancestors of Division C. And then more recently, since last year, there's the Office of Astronomy for Education, and that we will be supporting as we go forward. And so what I've highlighted here in terms of the commissions are the commissions that are most closely aligned with the activities of the offices. And I also want to point out that there is a memorandum of understanding or a letter of understanding between Commission C2 and the Office of Astronomy for Outreach, particularly as it relates to the CAP conferences. So going into the future, where will the division be headed? And I believe that we will be putting more emphasis on research. In the past, the division and its antecedents focused a lot more on I guess, just general education and general outreach, with less emphasis on the scholarly aspects or the evidence, how to create the evidence, do the research to figure out what works, that we've been hearing about today. And I think we will be doing a lot more of that. We will continue our collaborations with the other offices, and especially with the Office of Astronomy for Education, the divisions, the commissions, and the working groups. And I'd like to think of Division C as being kind of like the think tank for the offices, so that we should be a resource for the union. And this is my personal hope, is that we can broaden the participation in the division to include a lot more early career folks, to include people in all the continents, who are working in all the continents, and I guess even Antarctica. And also to one of the goals for this broader participation, in my view, is that this is how we get new ideas, new approaches, new methods, creativity into the activities of the division. And honestly, these are really exciting times. And I say that because we have new missions, new observatories that are coming into existence and into operation. So the big one is the Vera Rubin Observatory that is being built in Chile. We have space-based missions that are happening: Euclid, the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, the radio telescopes. And what makes this really exciting is that these instruments are building into their infrastructure accessibility to their data, so that anybody can use the data. And as we all know, with these they all have very large fields of view, terabytes of data at once. And so big data is coming to education. And so I think this conference is really setting the stage for how we, as astronomers, as educators, as students, can take advantage of these wonderful resources and learn more about our universe. And I think this is the end. And also, the last thing I want to say is that all of this is only possible with the participation of all of you. You are key to the future. I'm done.
Thank you, Susana. Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation, very detailed explanation of the rather sometimes complicated structure of the IAU, I have to say. I was lost when I was first involved with the IAU. I found it very difficult to navigate through all these structures. But thank you very much for this the division has really done really a wonderful job in the last years, and it certainly has a really brilliant future, I think. And there is one question here, which is by Ryan Khan. He says, how can we contact the heritage group?
The easiest is to go to the IAU webpage and look under Division C and then under Commission C4. And you will find the contact information there. I'm sorry I don't carry it in my head.
There is also a comment by Walter Guevara, and he says, in the cases of astronomical heritage protection, conservation of potential sites for astronomical observation, what are the concrete actions that the IAU carries out so that the respective governments and institutions are required to comply and not just a written statement on paper?
Okay, so I'm going to start by saying that the IAU recommends and encourages.
Yes.
And so the IAU itself, it cannot enforce any action. But what the Heritage Group does is that it works with organizations like, for example, the UNESCO, which has contacts with individual countries and various organizations. And so the process is to engage, to use the overused word, the local community that is concerned with, cultural patrimony, and work with them to understand the importance of protecting a particular heritage site, because ultimately enforcement is up to the individual countries and their governments. So I think our job is to make people understand why it's important, how it fits into how each country views itself, and how it to understand the value of that heritage to the country, and to work with the country organizations on protecting those sites. I'm sorry I can't say that there's a magic enforcement agency, but that is the hard work.
Okay, Beatriz is asking, Susana, in the same way that the Inclusion Working Group was promoted to an executive working group, are there any others which are on this line?
Not at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean it wouldn't happen in some future. And okay. I also want to say thank you to Gudrun for posting on the chat that as president of Commission C4, World Heritage and Astronomy, she can be contacted.
Okay, Beatriz also asks about the interdivision working groups. Why are there only 2 working groups?
Why are there only 2?
Only 2. Yeah, I think pretty why there are not more than 2. Only 2 the interdivision working groups.
Well, I have the control of the microphones.
Yeah, you can ask.
So why don't you explain what you mean by your question?
No, my question is, there are intercommissions,
Right.
A working group, intercommission, but not interdivisions.
Correct.
There are 2, solar, and I don't remember the other. My question is about the mechanism. It means, is a bottom up, or is only bottom up mechanism? A group propose this kind of creation, or the division can see that will be good to prepare some special working group. That's all.
It actually works both ways. So sometimes a division says we really need to have a division or a working group that does X. So that's an example of the star names. That wasn't so much top down. It was probably top down, bottoms up, in a meeting of the minds. And star names is one that really doesn't belong to any single commission properly. It really is a division. And so the decision was made that that would be a good divisional working group. In terms of the other division, it usually happens that interested parties get together, try to figure out what the right process is, and they work within I hate to say this, the governing structures to figure out the best place for example, a working group or a commission. And the thing to remember is that the working groups are the organizations that really do the work. The commissions, not that the commissions don't do work, but the commissions also serve as an umbrella for the individual activities or tasks.
So next one, Nestor Camino, he's asking, do you know if there are plans to make a letter of understanding between the OAE and OAO, especially for NASE program?
For OAE?
And OAO, the Office of Astronomy Outreach.
That is a question that is probably better addressed to Marcus Puzzle and to Lina Canas. And I just want people to, the thing I will say is that NASE has a home within Division C and will always have a home within Division C.
Okay. And then there is another question by Yoli Villegana Pedreza. She's asking, how can I contact the education and training group in astrobiology? Also for historical radioastronomy? Thank you.
My answer again is the easiest way to find the people who are currently involved in those working groups is to go to the working group sites via the IAU website.
Mm-hmm.
And then just send them email.
Okay, so well, Beatriz is just making a comment that NASE will probably fit better under the umbrella of the Office of Astronomy Education rather than the Office of Astronomy for Outreach.
Right, NASE is not for outreach. That's what Beatriz's comment is.
Yeah. So there are no other questions here.
There's a comment in German that I don't
understand it either. Johannes, if you want to translate it into English, maybe we can answer that. But
I think that was to George.
Okay, so if are there any other questions or comments? If not,
and then I should also just, I'm putting my email address in the chat in case anybody has further questions or comments or anything they would like to talk about. They can contact me.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, then okay.
Thank you very much. This talk is very important for many people here, which who are not part of member of IAU. There are a lot of teachers and professors, and it's good to show how is the organization. For these people, is a new thing, and your presentation was very interesting because of that. Because there are people who doesn't know or don't know how. In which way the IAU is organized. Even many people believe now with this symposium that the purpose of the IAU is the education and is one of the activities that the IAU promote. So this is a good thing to put black on white. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Susana. Thank you, Amelia.